So I just got back from watching Trey Edward Schultz' It Comes at Night, and it was phenomenal. I know, big compliment to start off the review, right? But let me explain why this movie is so great and why it very well might be my favorite film of the year so far. Normally, I'd start off these reviews with a plot synopsis, but I feel that not to be a good idea for this film in particular. This film thrives on the mystery, the suspense, the paranoia, and much more that it uses masterfully to its effect to present a fantastic piece of psychological horror that always keeps you guessing. So I feel spoiling anything about the film would be a massive disservice to both the film and the viewer, as the less you know about the film, the better your experience will go. As I mentioned, the film excels at creating a world that is both mysterious and suspenseful to the viewer and even the characters in the film. This is because we, as the viewers, learn everything that the characters are learning as they occur. And this really helps the film portray that fear and paranoia it attempts to achieve. And not only does it attempt to do so, but achieves it leagues beyond what most other filmmakers are capable of. You're never quite aware of who or what the enemy is, who to trust, who is lying. It's all portrayed so well that it accumulates into this psychological horror masterpiece. Another factor that aids in this film's success is the actors. The film could have been easily ruined by bad performances by maybe either the child or teenage performances. But surprisingly, every actor not only managed to hold their own weight, but excel in their performances to the point where I had completely forgotten that the people on screen were characters. And it also helped that the characters were so easily able to buy into. You believe that all their actions were logical to their characters. They all acted in the exact way you imagined they would, leading to no character contradictions to speak of. Nonetheless, I'm trying to avoid spoiling the film as much as possible because this is one certainly worth your watch as soon as you can possibly see it. Every decision this movie makes is absolutely great. One such decision was to shoot the film entirely in natural light, which was a fantastic choice. Very similarly to a prior A24 horror film, The Witch, it added to the realism of the film and allowed for an easier immersion into the world, as well as a multitude of different other things that allowed it to be that much more terrifying. Also, despite many critics bashing the film on this point, the decision to leave certain parts of the film vague and up to interpretation was also fantastic. I feel like I might be able to understand the frustration of not knowing what's going on and not getting the answers to the question that the plot portrays, but certainly not in this scenario. As I mentioned before, there is no dramatic irony in this film. You know as much as the characters do as the plot progresses, and the characters don't know everything that's going on. There is no exception for convenience, and there is no hand-holding. You experience this world just like you would if you were in the scenario, which adds a great realism to the film. If I had to seriously point out something in the film that I didn't like, I could really only point out 3 things that might have hampered down the experience just a bit. One being the soundtrack and use of it, which was a little generic and sounded pretty typical of general horror movies in the sense that it was extremely forgettable. Not to mention when a scene was tense enough, tracks were still included and thus brought down the tension only slightly. 2, there was a logical inconsistency I caught onto. The character uses something that happened earlier in the film to describe why it wouldn't make sense for someone to notice the family when it very well easily would. And 3rd, there was one cut I didn't like. One cut. Hell, even the jump scares and dream sequences in this film were done right. Despite being typical horror cliché tropes that have ruined the vast majority of the films in the horror genre, this film renovates them and makes them into something the audience and the characters alike dread witnessing. So seriously, before I get ahead of myself, to all of you looking for your next fit of gritty, realistic, psychological horror, or even just a particularly good film, It Comes at Night is a film that you should check out as soon as possible. And I'm giving this one an 8.5 out of 10.